Who's ready for another deck study? Me! Me! Oh my god. Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. This is the Embodied Ecosystems deck, a tarot oracle deck and guidebook for interconnected remembrance, created by Rachael Amber. First, I'll talk about the deck a little bit, why we're doing this study. Then I'll go through the activities that we did in our first study session and share them with you. Even if you don't have this deck for yourself, I hope these videos and these study ideas can help inspire you in doing your own kinds of tarot and oracle deck studies. As with all my videos, I'll have timestamps in the description, so you can jump to whichever sections you'd like. So first, about this deck and why I'm doing a dedicated study. So the Gentle Tarot deck study was the first group experience I ever had studying a tarot deck. This is the Gentle Tarot by Marty in the Sky. Even though I had not had any plans for the deck study, I didn't really have a structure, no ideas in mind except for just meeting on voice call every single week. We came up with so many different activities and things to do, things to talk about every single session, about what we saw in the cards and how we connected it to other things that we knew and that we experienced. Not every tarot deck is or it needs to be study worthy. Sometimes we just don't feel like getting that deep into a deck, or some decks are just really casual that way. But with this Gentle Tarot, there were symbols and there were contexts in this deck and in the guidebook that I wanted to read and digest alongside other people. It's kind of like how you take a class for something. You know you're going to actually get some variety in how you study it and learn it, and you also know you're accountable to turning in your homework and actually looking at it every week. Versus sometimes doing a self-study, it's just easy to fall off the wagon, put it off, and then never get around to it again. Which is also okay, just the rhythms of life, things that we're interested in. Now, the Embodied Ecosystems deck intrigues me for the same reasons that the Gentle Tarot did. This is clearly a deck that really comes from a personal place, and I'm really curious to hear and to learn about the creators' experiences and how they got infused into this deck. This deck just got fulfilled on Kickstarter this year, so it's pretty new out in the market. This deck feels so unique. First of all, it is a square deck. How cute is this size and this shape? But also, this deck features ecosystems, so systems, things outside of ourselves, and also our own bodies. So that's why it's called Embodied Ecosystems. The ecosystems outside us are also within us. It is really cool to make connections with tarot, with all of the stuff that we like to nerd out about. Because all of us come from different backgrounds, right? So even though I don't have much of a nature background, I can still see different connections in these cards. For example, perfect timing, the potential of stability, or the Five of Pentacles, Five of Earth here. For me, the first thing I see is the Sailor Moon transformation sequence, where Sailor Moon is calling like moon for some power, and you have all those sparklies flying around, and then she transforms and becomes magical. And now every time I see this card, I'm gonna see that Sailor Moon transformation sequence. Tarot is all about making connections. You got to connect it to your own things that you know, other people's things that they're sharing too. That's how we develop our own reading style and our own connections with the cards. Even if you don't read for other people, this is your reading style. It's similar to how when you do arts and crafts, it's okay if your painting of a cup looks like other people's paintings of a cup, but internally, the process in which you got there, the things you were thinking about, the things you infused into that painting, it's all your own. And that's what makes it unique to you. And it's so important to develop our own uniqueness and to do these creative things. And the things that we learn through studying and engaging with this deck, I can still take to other things that I do, other things I want to analyze. Here's an example of the namesake of this deck, Embodied Ecosystems. The Vessel of Transformation, which is the Page of Wands, at first glance, it looks like just a candle, right? Which is definitely related to fire. But looking closer, it looks like a person here. We have their body, their arms, their head in the middle of the candle. And so I'm really curious to see other cards where nature is also reflected in people, or like the people are integrated into nature. The Justice card in the Gentle Tarot has that similar vibe. At first glance, it looks like just a mound, but if we look closer, it's actually someone's belly. And it's confirmed in the guidebook too that this is your belly. So that really adds to the meaning of the Justice card, how sometimes you have to just go with your gut feeling. It's not always about what you logically think is right. Sometimes it's about what feels right in your gut. Last thing I'll mention here before going to activities, all of the numbers and the suits and the courts and even some of the majors have been renamed in this deck. And the numerology and the quartz renaming is what we'll go into later on. But to preview it first right now, we have the element of awareness as the Ace of Swords, or the Ace of Air. Duality of fluidity, this is the Two of Cups. Synergy of awareness for Three of Swords, and so on and so forth. So that's why this deck is called a tarot and oracle rather than just a tarot deck itself. It is based on the tarot structure, likely the Rider-Waite-Smith structure, but it really expands on that with the creator's own interpretations with all these different keywords. And even if you didn't know or care about the tarot structure, you can still lay these cards out and read these keywords as they are and try to glean some meaning from these instead. So the vessel of fluidity, even if you don't know that that is intended to be the Page of Cups, what could the vessel of fluidity next to the synergy of transformation mean to you? And these are a lot of big words. It can be a very abstract, dreamy kind of deck, but I think that's part of the fun, you know? All that being said, let's go into the activities here. Starting off this deck study, I was inspired by a tag that Amy of Strength Reversed just made on her channel a couple weeks back called Back to School Tarot. She came up with a set of prompts relating to the school year, and I liked that she asked to pick cards instead of choosing decks for each prompt. So the first prompt that I really liked was to pick a card that represents how you're feeling about the upcoming season or about new beginnings in your tarot practice. So that's our first exercise here. The first card here, pick a card that represents how you're feeling about the upcoming season or new beginnings in your tarot practice. And then for the second card, just randomly draw a card. This card can represent you at the end of this study. The first card that I consciously picked is the Three of Wands, or the Synergy of Transformation. Then the other card that I drew randomly was card number 24, Liberation. And this is when I learned that there are actually more major arcana extra cards in the deck. 24 major arcana. How fascinating that I happened to draw the last one in the sequence. So I chose the Three of Wands to represent this new beginning because I have been depressed. I have probably been fighting or masking or suppressing depression for longer than I realize. It is harder for me to hold on to and to think about happy memories and happy feelings compared to negative, down, low feelings. I realized I had been withdrawing and not finding much joy in my friendships, social interactions, and hobbies. It felt hard to do them because it was like, oh, well, as soon as they're over, I'm just gonna feel low and sad and meh again. So I'm actually currently on an antidepressant to curb the anxiety and the depression. I need to get projects in motion. I'm learning about this thing called behavior activation, activity scheduling, as a way to fight depression. Instead of waiting until we feel like it, you gotta act first because that will cause your mood to improve. This is the downward spiral that happens when I do what I naturally wanna do. I'm feeling blah, then I just become less active. And then I feel sad because I'm not active. I end up isolating more, and that will cause me to feel more and more depressed. So that's spiraling down. But then spiraling up, we have to counter that. So that's why we have to schedule activities and do these behaviors. Feel blah, but then become more active, do more active things. Then I will feel okay, and it will make me feel better and become more social. And then I will actually feel good. That's what's happening tonight, you know? I was feeling really good after our voice call, and now I'm here filming a video because filming videos does bring me joy, but it is hard to get the ball rolling if I'm just by myself. This represents not just the ace, that is the initial idea, the initial desire, and not just the two, which is the choices, figuring out what's next, but the three, which is actually creating things, getting the ball rolling, getting momentum started. Overall, it is unhelpful for me to stay isolated. I have to schedule things onto my calendar, learn how to manage the anxiety and the fear of commitment as we go along. To look closely just for a little bit, we have the eyes outlined here in white, an open eyeball sprouting up from a tree trunk here, these two paths at the bottom. It's almost as if these two paths are converging to grow into this one single tree trunk with an eye on top. Eye imagery is used a lot in this deck, so this is not the last we will see of eyeball imagery. And in the middle of these two eyeballs, in between the the crotch of this tree, is the nose here. I guess while I'm here, let's look at the guidebook to see if there's anything extra. The guidebook here looks really expansive. We have a full color illustration of every single card. We have questions to ask ourselves to ponder, affirmation or a mantra of sorts, and an invitation, which is a practical activity that you can do relating to the energy in this card. And then, of course, the guidebook entry as well. For now, I'll just highlight this one question. What lives between what you can see and what you can envision? I envision having the energy, the motivation to engage with things that I enjoy again, feeling connected to other people, finishing a project that I feel really proud about, that I put so much energy and heart and soul into. And then briefly, the card that will represent me at the end of the study is Liberation. I just see a void. It almost looks like the world, looks like a blank slate in a way. Next discussion topic is, what are you hoping to get from the study? Yeah, you could just be getting into the study because everyone else is doing it. But why does this deck, why does this study interests you personally. So I mentioned my own reasons before. Other reasons that people mentioned are that the court cards here are really unique and really cool compared to other tarot decks. The guidebook has practical activities and tie-ins that you can do. A great guidebook really makes for a great deck reading and deck studying experience. And like I mentioned, for me, I want to challenge myself again. I want to do community and group projects because I have just not done that for a long time. I don't want to lose the muscle of public speaking and engaging with other people. So for you following along, why are you interested in doing this study? Why are you interested in watching these videos? The next activity we did was to read and review the eco-invocation. It's on page 30 of the guidebook, and if the tarot deck that you're studying doesn't have an invocation or an opening intention of any sort, then you can also just read the introduction of the guidebook because it's helpful to understand the context of how the deck was made, what the artist brings into the deck. But of course, if that doesn't interest you, you don't have to do that either. I'm a fan of not having to do things linearly. You don't have to start from the very beginning all the time. You can really just start with whatever interests you the most. For me, I did want to get a first impression of how the artist writes and the concepts that they choose to focus on. On the second page of this invocation, each stanza correlates to a different suit. So the first stanza, that's related to the earth suit, or the suit of stability. I touch the stability of this physicality, of these bones and branches, the soil and skin, all that roots us beneath and within. Next, we have I feel the fluidity of this form, water or the cup suit, vital organs and watersheds, these veins and rivers, this heart and womb of the sea, all the ways we relate and reciprocate. Here we go, another fluidity card. Yeah, how our blood flows through our veins. All our vitamins and minerals flow through our veins. Next is the suit of wands, the suit of fire. I see the transformation of this creation, of this light and sight, this inspiration and illumination. All that is in constant change and collaboration. The navigator of transformation, which is related to the knight of wands. Here's the ace of wands, ace of fire, element of transformation. Another transformation, the teacher of transformation here. Wow, the rainbow being a body. Yeah, the things that we see, the things that we imagine. These are things that inspire us and illuminate us. And then next we have, I hear the awareness of this consciousness, of this breath and wind, these weather and nervous systems, all the ways we connect and communicate. So awareness, 5 of swords, 5 of air, potential of awareness here. Breath and wind, weather and nervous systems, just like how the weather will have rainy days and snowy days and also sunny days, our nervous systems are not going to be sunny and calm all the time either. We're going to have different things challenge and affect our nervous systems. It's all just part of the experience of being alive. And then lastly here is the major arcana. I embody the center, the intersections and interconnections of matter and spirit, all the in-betweens, seen and unseen of this wholeness. So here 10, Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Fate. Here it's called Trust. Here's a snail. Surrender, the Hanged One. And the last thing we did was review the numbers and the courts. So I've pulled out an ace, 2, 3 through 10, and each of the courts. Didn't matter which suit they were from. I had already shuffled the deck, so I just pulled the first ones that I saw. Let's go through them one by one. Ace, element. 2 is duality. 3 is synergy. 4 is root. 5 is potential. 6 is guidance. 7 is pursuit. 8 is dynamics. 9 is abundance. 10 is realization. Now, for the courts. The vessel is the page. The navigator correlates with the knight. The teacher correlates with the queen. And the conduit correlates with the king. In these guidebook entries, there are no gendered pronouns. It bugs me when creators write, oh, the courts have no gender in their guidebooks, but then they'll still refer to the courts as she for the queens and he for the kings. They even will also write pages as she and knights as he. It really bugs me. If the courts can mean any gender, then change the pronouns or use gender-neutral pronouns. In this guidebook, Rachael actually uses first person and second person. So instead of third person, she, he, they, and other pronouns, I, me, my, and you. On page 85, there's a page about the court cards as well. Rachael interprets these as non-hierarchical ecological being. So rather than seeing the page, knight, queen, king as a progression, similar to like how ace leads to 2 to 3, the non-hierarchical part means you can go from the vessel to the conduit, to the navigator. You can go in any order. And even if you're starting a new project, you don't have to necessarily be the page or the vessel either. The quartz can be really in any order, any formation, like how a carbon cycle or a water cycle has no beginning or end either. Water is liquid and it becomes gas and it becomes solid sometimes. There's no beginning or end to that cycle. Yeah, similar way of seeing the quartz here. We tend to value hierarchy, which is why a lot of people will say, I want to be like a queen or a king. I want to be the queen of wands. I want to be the king of swords. But there's so much value and also joy, really, in these other quartz as well. The vessel or the page, the navigator or the knight. Now that we've looked through all of these keywords, what are your own keywords for each of these cards? How do they compare and contrast against the keywords that Rachael Amber has chosen for their deck? The 5 being potential is curious to me. For me, the 5s are shakeups. They're uncertainties. Potential makes me think of how we have a foundation, we have a stability, we have the 4, the root here. When that's shaken up, things are opening up. There is room for other things to grow. There is room for change, for new stability to be found. I know the word potential is usually used for the aces, so it's interesting to see it here put as the 5 in the middle of this sequence, the middle of this progression. The 6, 7, 8s, I'm usually shaky on with other decks as well. I'm curious how I'll get along with dynamics being 8, the 7 being pursuit. For me, 7s are usually discernment, assessment, like the 7 of Pentacles, assessing your efforts, assessing your direction. 7 of Swords is like assessing your thoughts, assessing your words, your expression. I don't actually have a strong keyword for the 6 personally. So yeah, guidance is curious to me too. So that was our first study session of the Embodied Ecosystems Tarot Oracle deck. Thanks for watching. Bye.